Hear that? It's a bee. It's been flying around. It's driving me absolutely nuts. Get these control arms, these control arm brackets off. All right, see the way that sits? Get the large part of the rubber to the inside and the thin part of the rubber to the outside. What I need to do is take that bushing and just rotate it around. That's what I'm going to be working on. That'll work. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's the your control arm bushing. Okay, and as it sits in the Crown Vic, it sits at an angle, at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so this portion right here is parallel to the ground. What I need to do is mount this plate parallel to the frame, and that leaves this bushing in an awkward position where now if I try to do this, it's not going to allow me to adjust the camber properly. So all you need to do is take this bushing and rotate this bushing so it goes back to horizontal with the ground. There's two ways of doing it. I've seen people, they've cut these welds off on both sides, and then they'll take this whole thing and they'll rotate it inside of this cup here, and then I've seen people make just a single cut right on the inside here so they can loosen this up and they can rotate that around. So I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. Imparts a lot less heat on there, and then I don't have to worry about replicating the strength of these factory welds.
If I bleed tonight, if I am sad tonight, I don't have a job to find. And if I work tonight, if I'm so tired tonight, I'll fall asleep when I'm home. Just so far from here, focused on my own way, with never looking back to those who lived in fear. There was nothing I could do, there was nothing you said that could make me realize how much lucky I was. Just out of reach of the fire, was not aware of this nightmare. But when I stopped to see those eyes begging for help, begging for hope, just need to open my eyes down to try to change them to sunshine, to be someone among others. I've got to try it. If I bleed tonight, if I am sad tonight, I don't have a job to find. And if I work tonight, if I'm so tired tonight,
Okay, so here's the bracket. You can see where I welded it and cleaned it back up. Nice and smooth. When I bolt that on, that's parallel. That opening now is parallel to the frame, or it will be. So it'll be back in the same position that it was when it came off of the car. It's going to go. It will go like this if that were the front, and this plate comes back. And there you go. Right there. Try to hit these with a sandblast and clean them up and paint them. Both of these are completely sandblasted now. They're cleaned up, and I've got some primer and some paint that I'm going to shoot them with. But first things first, I've got some 1/4-inch plates. Got 3 of them. Hopefully it'll be enough to complete the design that I've got. The way this will work is like that, and then I've got 1 for each side, of course. There's going to be about a 3/4 inch to an inch gap whenever those go up against the frame rails. There's a little gap that leans towards the front, and I'll show that to you, and you'll see that. So I've got this other piece. What I'll do is I'll cut it down, I'll make it vertical, and I'll make a weld. So I have a 90-degree. So when this plate goes on, it'll go up against the frame rail, and it'll have a 90-degree right there, and it'll bolt to this, and then up against the frame rail. So it'll make sense when I show it to you. So what I did was just playing around with the sandblaster. I put a new hose on it and got some new sand for it, and it's working a heck of a lot better now. Didn't take very long to do these at all. Sand gets everywhere. So I've already traced one of these out. That is this one, which is the driver's side. So it looks like an arrow facing forward. That's the driver's side. And then, of course, the fat part into the inside. So this is the driver's side. I'm going to cut this out and then use this as a template to cut out the other piece. And then from there, we'll fine-tune it. Okay, I got that plate completely cut out, shaped, still kind of warm. I'm pretty happy with it. It's just rough cut. Like I said, I'll fine tune everything later on. But deep corner right there. But pretty happy with the way that turned out. And of course, I say this for the driver's side, but it could be for the driver's side, passenger side. It really doesn't make a difference. Trying to get this thing lined up where it needs to go. Got a bolt hole here. Bolt hole here. And what will end up happening is this will get welded on back under here, and then there'll be a plate, something that goes right here, a vertical piece that gets welded in like that. I'm just trying to figure out, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this mounting. If I want to do a 45 that comes off of here that supports it, or if I do something under here that supports it. I have not completely figured this out yet. So as I'm looking at this, the shape on the outside, this looks nice. It doesn't painted black. It'll have the bolt sticking through here. It'll have the bolt up there, and then there's a bolt here, here, and then right here. The problem that I've got is this cutout that I made. Let me get over here. This cutout to match the bracket right here reduces the weldable material that I've got back here. Let me see if I can focus this in. So what I want to do is I want to cut this out again, but I'm not going to cut that section out. I'm just going to keep it straight. That way I've got more material to weld with. So back to the drawing board. Yeah, waste of a good looking plate. I'll still be able to use some of it, so it's not going to be a complete waste, but back to the drawing board. So what I'll do is I'll cut the same thing out, but I'm not going to cut this out. This I'm going to leave in. This back edge is what I'm going to use to weld it. And okay, this is much better. Now I've got all this space across the back. So I've got inside here on the bottom though, right there, all that space to weld when I weld this up. And then I'll put in some gusseting, or I'm going to put in a bracket right here, I think, a vertical piece right there, and it'll be a 90, so I can bolt in and do whatever I have to do. Alright, after a lot of cutting, welding, grinding, hurting myself, I came up with a design. It's a 1/4 inch plate. That's the stuff that I picked up. It's got a 90-degree bend on it, and it's welded in right there. Welded in. I got a glob of weld right there. I'll clean all that up. And here's the same thing, 90-degree. Here to the other side, and you can see how the plate fits. I marked the center of the holes. Right here, I try to get the bolts as close to the center as I could. I got those 3 holding it on, and the important thing, the really important thing, is that these bolts right here, you want to keep these in, you want the fat part of the rubber, the fat rubber, to the inside of the frame, and when you bolt these on, you want this in the very center of this, so you can get these lined up properly. And then from the center of this bolt to the center of the other bolt over there is going to be 33 inches. So it has to be 33 inches. The reason for that is because those are your camber plates. They affect your camber. And just to give you a crash course of what camber is the front and use the motorcycle here as an example. Okay, you see how the front end, it relative to the ground, it sits at an angle. Okay, that's your rake. This right here is your rake. And then you've got trail, and trail is it's a mathematical formula that I've used, and bike builders use it, manufacturers use it. Essentially what it is if you were to draw a straight line through the neck down to the ground, and then from the axle line straight down, the difference between those 2 points is going to be your trail. Same kind of thing, same concept when we're talking about a car or a truck. Instead of having your kingpin on the neck, like on the motorcycle, you've got an upper ball joint and a lower ball joint. These two, in relative to each other, is what sets your camber. That's your camber. That's basically the angle at which the front end is sitting. And typically on a Crown Victoria you wanted, I believe it was in 1.5 degrees. So in order to get that, let's see if I can do this. If you look straight down here, you see how there's this point, and then there's this point, your lower ball joint. If I put my finger right there and I put my finger right there, there's a difference. The lower ball joint's out farther. that's what you want, but you want that lower ball joint out farther by about 1.5 degrees in order to get your proper camber adjustment. Otherwise, the vehicle's not going to handle really well. It's going to get really wobbly. Same thing with a motorcycle. If you think of a shopping cart and the shape of its wheels. So, in order to keep with the proper geometry, in order to keep with the proper geometry from the original Crown Victoria, you rotate the bushings, set everything up in the middle. You set these at 33 degrees, and then it should give you enough adjustment to be able to get the proper amount of camber so the vehicle handles the way that it should. So I'm debating, haven't decided if I'm going to do this or not. I've got these little triangles here. I suppose it can't hurt. And I was debating putting these in here, but to be completely honest, I don't know how much more reinforcement or bracing they're going to add. I don't really know that it's necessary. I hadn't welded the back of this yet. I welded this all up, and I ran a couple of beads just to make sure that it was good and solid. This was sitting about 1/4 inch off of the back of the frame, and I stood on this with all my weight. I'm 200 pounds. I stood on this with all my weight, and this didn't bend. I got this all welded up, and then I tried to hit it with the persuasionator, and wasn't able to get the welds to. I wasn't able to get the welds to break. I tried to test them, and wasn't able to get it to flex. So this is extremely strong now. So and really, this 1/4 inch plate's stronger and thicker than the frame. So I'm not gonna. I don't really think that something like that's even necessary. I think I'm just gonna run it and see what happens. All right, guys. Well, listen, I appreciate you sticking around. I'm gonna try to get the front end boxed up, and get all this cleaned out, get the front end boxed up, and be good to go. And we're gonna move on to the rear end.